Back in 1916, one of the longest, bloodiest, and honestly most ferocious battles in all of human history erupted on the Western Front. But here's the thing. This wasn't just a battle for a piece of land. No, this was dreamed up with a terrifyingly cold and calculated purpose, to literally bleed an entire nation to death. So let's dive into the horror and the strategy of the Battle of Verdun.
Okay, first, just try to wrap your head around this. For 302 straight days, that's almost 10 months, the French and German armies were just locked in this relentless, all-consuming struggle. And the cost in human lives? It's just staggering. Over 700,000 casualties. We're talking killed, wounded, or just gone. That's like 70,000 people a month, every month, for almost a year. So that leads to the big, chilling question here. How did this even happen? How did one single spot on a map become this symbol of industrial slaughter, not by some accident of war, but as part of a deliberate, terrifying plan?
Well, it all started with one man, the German Chief of Staff, Erich von Falkenhayn. And his strategy? It was about as cynical and brutal as it gets.
See, for Falkenhayn, the goal wasn't really to capture the city of Verdun. No, his real goal was to attack a place so important to the French, so deep in their national soul, that they'd be forced to throw every last soldier they had into defending it. The whole idea, his big plan, was to bleed France white by turning Verdun into an inescapable killing field. So, why Verdun? Why this one spot? Well, take a look at this map. It shows you everything you need to know. The city formed what's called a salient, basically a bulge sticking out into the German lines. It's surrounded on three sides, making it the perfect target for German artillery, who could just rain down shells from multiple directions at once. And this is where things get really bad. A total mismatch of strategy and reality. On one hand, you have the Germans getting ready to pound Verdun with a crazy amount of heavy artillery. But on the other hand, the French had made this critical mistake. They thought the massive forts around Verdun were obsolete, a thing of the past. So they stripped them of their guns and left just tiny crews behind. They basically turned their greatest shields into hollow shells.
And that mistake, wow, it was going to have absolutely devastating consequences, like right away.
The battle kicks off with what the Germans called Trommelfeuer, drum fire. Just try to imagine it. A 10-hour storm of pure steel, over 1 million shells crashing down. They say you could hear it nearly 100 miles away. This was a whole new level of warfare. And if you want to see what that kind of power does, just look at Fort Douaumont. On the left, you see this imposing, state-of-the-art fortress, right? The pride of Verdun's defenses. And on the right, after the battle, it's a ruin. You can barely tell it apart from the cratered-out moonscape all around it.
So get this. On February 25th, this supposedly impenetrable fortress was captured by a tiny German raiding party. The garrison was just a skeleton crew of technicians. The machine guns were still packed away in their boxes. The drawbridge was jammed open. It was a complete disaster for the French, a huge military and psychological blow.
With France basically in a full-blown panic, the high command turned to one man to hold the line and, really, to embody the spirit of the entire nation's resistance.
That man was General Philippe Pétain. He was brought in to fix a situation that was just spiraling out of control and to somehow organize a desperate defense. And his strategy? It was brutally simple. No retreat, period. Every single German attack had to be met with an immediate French counterattack. The famous phrase, "Ils ne passeront pas," they shall not pass, became the rallying cry. So, in a way, Pétain basically called Falkenhayn's bluff. He said, "You want a meat grinder? Fine, but it's going to grind up both of us." And what came next? Well, it was months of some of the most hellish, grinding warfare in history. Just a relentless cycle of attack, counterattack over the exact same shattered ground over and over again. For the next few months, the whole thing just gets stuck in this horrific stalemate. The Germans kept pushing, they took key spots like Fort Val in June, but they just couldn't get that final breakthrough. Then, in July, something big happens. The British launched the Battle of the Somme way up north. This forced Germany to pull away crucial men and artillery from Verdun. The grinder was slowing down, but the killing didn't stop. 16. Just let that number sink in for a second. That's how many times the tiny village of Fleury-de-Vendôme, a place that was literally wiped off the map, changed hands between June and August. 16 times. Men fought and died for a pile of rubble.
Okay, so with the Germans bogged down and getting hammered at the Somme, the French suddenly saw their chance, an opportunity not just to defend, but to actually go on the attack.
You know, this map really tells the whole story, doesn't it? Look at the front lines. At the end of the battle in December, they were almost exactly where they were back in February. After 10 months of absolute slaughter, the French had clawed back nearly everything. The French comeback was just incredible. Slow, methodical, but unbelievably heroic. In October, they retook the huge symbolic prize of Fort Douaumont. A month later, Fort Vaux was back in their hands. And by December, after 10 long, bloody months, the German attack was officially called off. It was over.
So France had done it. They held Verdun. They'd won. But that victory, it came at a cost that would scar the entire country forever.
I mean, just look at these numbers. They're absolutely gut-wrenching. The French took over 377,000 casualties, and the Germans, the ones who designed this meat grinder, suffered almost 337,000 themselves. Falkenhayn's twisted plan had worked, but it bled his own army almost as badly as his enemies.
So, yeah, on paper, it's a victory for France. They shall not pass. And they didn't. But Verdun became something else, didn't it? It became the ultimate symbol of pointless slaughter, of a war where human lives were just another resource for generals to spend in some grim math problem of attrition.
And that's what we're left with, this really haunting question. When a battle costs over 700,000 lives and ends up right back where it started, what does victory even mean?